Lockport Christian Church family, Pastor Mike here. I hope you are doing awesome. It is Wednesday, so that only means one thing. It is Wednesday in the Word. And let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about Jesus is okay with you straining. Let's check it out. All right, so the word that we're in this week is from Mark chapter 6, and we're going to pick up in verse 47. Now, this was right after Jesus did one of his most amazing miracles. He fed 5,000 people from a couple of loaves of bread and a couple of pieces of fish. And there's a bunch of people gathered. He feeds them from just these few objects and does this amazing miracle. And then right away, he sends the disciples away on a boat. And he sends them out across the Sea of Galilee. And it's really interesting where we pick up. In Mark chapter 6, verse 47, it says, "Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land." So the boat with the disciples in it is out in the middle of the lake, and he's on the land. It says he saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake, and he was about to pass them by. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down, and they were completely amazed. Let's read that one more time. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. And shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake, and he was about to pass them by. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. And they cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them, said, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." What great words, even for us today. Maybe God's speaking to you right then and there. Take courage. Don't be afraid. Jesus is here. It says, then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down, and they were completely amazed. This is one of my favorite accounts of Jesus walking on the water, even more so than the one where Peter is involved. Because I love the picture I get of Jesus. He's on the shore, it says, and he looks out, and the disciples are out there and they're straining at the oars, and he sees them. He sees them straining, right? And it's nighttime. And it's amazing to me because it says, shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake, and he was about to pass by them. Let me say something to you guys. This story makes me realize that God is okay when we strain and when we struggle. And I know that sounds weird, like we want to think that God is our Savior and he rescues us from all of our situations and he takes us out of all of our bad things and he's just the one that comes running to us when we need him. It's nice to think about that. But look at this story of Jesus. It says at night he sees them, right? At night he sees them and they're straining at the oars. At night he sees them, but he waits until dawn to go and out to the lake to meet them. And then he gets out on the lake and he doesn't even stop. It says here, he was about to pass by them. Jesus sees them straining. He sees them struggling. He sees them having difficulty because the wind is against them. He waits till right before dawn. He walks out to the lake. He's about to pass by. Their boat wasn't even going to stop. Because God is okay when we struggle. You want to know why God's okay when we struggle? I'll give you a couple of reasons here. Number one, God's okay when we struggle because straining brings strength. When we have to strain, when we have to struggle, when we have to work through something, it only makes us stronger. It makes us physically stronger, mentally stronger, spiritually stronger. When you have to strain, when you have to struggle, when you have to work, it only makes you stronger. God's okay when we struggle because he knows we're going to grow from it. Here's another thing that it makes us stronger. Straining makes us desperate. Think about it. When we're straining, when we're struggling, when times are hard, we only want to find the way out. We only want to find the solution. We only want to figure it out, to get through it. Straining, struggling, difficult situations, it only makes you stronger. It only makes you more desperate. In verse 49, it says, they saw him, they thought he was a ghost, and they cried out. They saw Jesus about to pass by their boat. Hey, there's Jesus. He's the answer to our problems. And they cried out. Straining and struggling makes you desperate. It makes you desperate for a change. It makes you desperate enough to cry out to God. Here's the another thing that straining makes us. Straining opens the door for God's miraculous power. If it weren't for the strain, and if it weren't for the struggle, and if it weren't for the hard times, when would God be able to come in and use his divine, miraculous power to bring the solution? When life is easy, we don't look for God's power. When things are going smooth, we don't need God's power. It's in the straining and the struggle that opens the door for God's miraculous power. And it said, immediately he spoke to them, verse 50, and said, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. Jesus looks at them from the shore. He sees that they're straining. He waits till right before dawn. He goes out on the lake. He's about to pass by them. They get desperate. They cry out to him. He gets into the boat, and the winds die down. Straining makes us stronger. Straining makes us desperate. But straining opens the door for God to do something amazing. And that's why God is okay with you straining. He's okay with you struggling. He's okay with hard things that you have to overcome and work against, because it's only going to work out for God's glory. That's my Wednesday in the Word. I hope you're having an amazing week. I hope that you are straining and struggling and growing and getting stronger, getting desperate. Are you desperate yet for God? Are you ready for him to come in with his miraculous power? Hope you're having an awesome week. I hope you're praying for me. I certainly am praying for you, because we are all in this together. Blessings.